My name is Gill. I head up managed services for CSG, and today we're going to talk about the evolution of managed services beyond cost transformation to driving innovation as a central theme with our clients, and we'll explore how that is evolving the business model for managed services. I wanted to kind of focus this session on something that I think that I'm seeing quite an interesting trend, and I think Chris referred to it in his survey, and I think Mark, you was coming through in your research as well, is that the focus of managed services is shifting. In terms of what customers want from managed services is shifting. And that was very interesting listening to Pira in terms of Vodafone's experience. Because for a long time, managed service is not a new thing, as Mark said. There's been managed service contracts as long as I can remember. Mostly the focus from the vendor, from the client perspective, was trying to say, can I get a cost reduction, a significant cost reduction, and usually, even the vendors were out there with the sort of mantra, you're mess for less. So if somebody comes up to you and he wants to sell you your mess for less, I would say don't buy it, because you'll get more of a mess. It might not be quite less, but it'll be a bit more of a headache going forward. The other thing I think is it's very interesting to see what makes for a successful business. And my sort of focus is really around innovation, because businesses that don't innovate die out very quickly in today's ecosystem. And who would have thought, Nokia reinvented itself as a company, stopped making tires and all sorts of other weird things it used to make, become a really successful mobile business, and went out of business very quickly. Effectively, the reason it sold it to Microsoft, you really didn't know what it could do with that business. It failed the innovation test. And the biggest of all, BlackBerry, had the market to itself, was the most predominant smartphone vendor, had very sophisticated technology, just ran out of road when it came to innovation. And no change of CEOs or anything else could help that business survive. And I would say today, where the telecoms industry is it's facing that challenge. And I think, as I see and I meet operators all over the world, the telecommunications industry has matured. The growth in the business has gone. The traditional things that telcos understood very well, voice, messaging, and data, are all starting to flatten out. And voice revenue is dropping significantly. Voice revenue is now becoming like 55–60% of their revenues. So if your engineering heritage, as a business, your heritage is being around running networks and managing network services, the traditional types of things that consumers bought, then I think there's going to be a little bit of a sea change, and it's going to happen very fast. Okay? So the other thing I would say about innovation is we get hyper-speed innovation. It's not innovation of cycles of 12 months, 18 months, 2 years. I was talking to a company that make components for Apple, and their innovation cycle for them is a month, is 1 month. Okay? That's what they've got to get it taped, they've got to get it into the production system, because smartphone manufacturers are changing their products every 6 months, and it'll be every 4 months. So I think that those things are worth bearing in mind. The industry's changed, and it's going to change very significantly. And some of those players are doing very interesting things, right? You've seen British Telecom suddenly pour £2 billion to become a sports vendor, right? To become Sky Mark II. They also happen to have acquired an ex-Sky executive on their board, so no surprise. But that's a very bold move for BT Retail. That's the division that's making those big sizable investments. And the scale and the appetite for their shareholders and their investors to do that tells you something, right? Supplying broadband connections isn't going to be enough. And I think the interesting thing for the mobile operator is I'm seeing pretty much a similar pattern. Like I saw some numbers from Everything Everywhere in terms of the LTE usage. It's really content. Okay? So just bear that in mind as we go through this presentation, because I wanted to make sure that when we talk about our business. So how many people here know, other than the CSG folks in the room, right? How many people in this room know who the hell is CSG and what is CSG about? Great, right? So about a couple of people, right? That's usually my experience. we as a business have been around for a long while, and I'll talk a little bit about CSG because it'll give you a little bit of a feel as to where we're coming from. And we have a slightly different positioning in the marketplace. And as we talk about our business, I think it resonates globally as we speak to customers internationally. It starts to resonate in terms of how the market changes. So I'll talk a little bit about how we see the market dynamics, right? And I think it's as we spoke about customer experience, I think it's interesting how we look at that as a business, and how we see customers asking us to do various things in terms of the technology estate that we run for them. And then we'll talk about service solutions. And I think I either use the word smart partnering. It's a terrible terminology, but I think both sides of the house have to get smarter about how we work together. And that was a kind of bit of a cry for help from Vodafone, right? Because just swapping suppliers all the time is a pretty, one, it tells you got it wrong, and two, it's a pretty unproductive for everybody concerned. So a little bit about CSG, okay? So our heritage as a company, CSG as a core, its business is really software as a service platform, right? So in the mid-90s, late 90s, there was an entrepreneur who ran around the cable industry as the cable industry was just starting out and said, like, I'm going to build a whole service infrastructure you need, from customer care, billing, everything. I'll build it. You don't have to invest. You pay me as you grow as businesses, and I'll run all that for you. And that was pretty attractive to the cable guys in the mid-90s because they were just starting out. It was just deregulating, and that's what they want to do. So that's where we started out. We started out as the cable systems group in the US, and I'll talk a little bit about the size of that platform today. Now that platform doesn't just run cable, because the cable businesses have become more like network businesses. So if I talk to Paul Buttery, he tells me, Alan, I'm not just a cable business. I probably might get more revenues from being a network business, right? So it's similarly in the US, they get significant revenues from TV and selling TV packages, but they have a very big business which are mobile, which are to do with broadband and network services, and they have different enterprise businesses. So we, as a business, we serve all of those lines of business. So roughly about 100 million subs, pretty big platform. We're talking about 220 million transactions, okay, a day, 2 petabytes of data in production for those customers, and about 5 petabytes of data in backup and storage. That is a seriously big shared services infrastructure. Okay, and you need, and most of that platform isn't a set of products that have been glued together. A lot of it's open source. A lot of it's very open in the sense that's not the only platform. So, if Comcast is one of our customers, they have a range of other systems. It has to work as part of an ecosystem. So we're part of an ecosystem, although we're a software as a service platform. And we have to be able to provide a framework that allows all of those other systems to interwork with it. That's why you get such a high volume of transactions, okay? It's just they're not just our transactions, lots of transactions. And some of the peaks and troughs are massive. And if there is a boxing match go live, well, basically most people buy that boxing, that premium service, they'll buy it in a 2-hour window. So when you see transaction volumes, it's incredible. So the platform is big. It provides most of the services for those clients. And about 3 years ago, CSG bought a company called Intech, which you guys may be more familiar with, which is a traditional product company. Provide a range of BSS and OSS services to the world. Has about 500 customers worldwide. And the reason we did that transaction is because there's a set of technologies we wanted from that platform. And two, we saw the world in a different way. We saw that we think increasingly, if you look at the telecoms market, it's really a groups. It's made up of operators operating across multiple geographies, and is dominated by tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 groups, right? Whether it's Hutch Group, Vodafone Group, Telefonica Group. These are big groups, have a lot of assets, and our perspective over time is that they will start to look at platforms, private cloud platforms, to service those their needs, I think, and we see that as a big significant opportunity. And it's conversations we're having all around the world where platform operators are saying, I have 400 million customers, but I can't do anything with them. I can't today, if I had 400 million customers, I can't launch a service to 400 million customers. I have 20 operators, 20 operations. I have umpteen billing systems, different BSS and OSS infrastructure. So if you look at the market value of, in today's world, the guys who have value are like Facebook and other operators who really can service their markets globally. They can launch services globally. And as we see the market evolution in the industry, then the ability to compete effectively with the over-the-top players means you've got to stop looking at different platforms in different countries. Otherwise, you're never going to leverage your customer base. Somebody else will leverage it before you are able to leverage it. So it's a significant, that's how we saw the marketplace. We operate in a variety of sectors. We don't just serve the telecoms market and the cable business. We have a security business. I'm not allowed to say what it is, but we have a significant, we provide software that manages cyber attacks. And we that's a significant growing business for us. We have a business that services the financial services industry. And we have a business that services the emerging M2M market, right? Qualcomm, OneStar. These are platforms that are serving the M2M market. And I often have conversations with telcos who are saying, we want to be in the M2M market and we're building a stack for M2M. Actually, if they want to realize value from M2M, they're going to have to figure out that it's going to have to be a service. What are you going to use M2M for? And I can tell you what GM are thinking about. They're saying, hey, we put SIMs in cars. We sell cars. We finance cars. We'll also insure cars, because now we're going to know who's driving it, how well they're driving it, which geography they're driving in. They can do real-time risk assessment and provide pay-as-you-go insurance. And I think you'll see it. You'll see General Motors leveraging the M2M platform by tapping a huge new revenue stream for them, because they already have a revenue stream from financial services. This will be a significant revenue stream for them, right? And we just happen to be the service provider, the platform that can handle the volumes and the transactions. That's our big story there. So that's us. So that kind of gives you a rationale as to why I'm here, why am I speaking about managed services, because basically our platforms are managed services. 60% of our revenue are from those annuity contracts. So we're a managed service player, but we're a platform managed services player. Now, how do I see the marketplace? And I think this slide is interesting from my point of view, because I think this is kind of what's going to shape a lot of what we've been talking about, customer experience management. So, what's customer experience management? Is that really, doing some more fancy stuff with your CRM system? I personally don't think so. I think people have these albatrosses, whether they are Siebel or Clarify or other big, heavy CRM systems, but the way consumers interact with them is shifting. And social media is going to be a very significant channel. And as operators, you need to understand, how do we harness that channel, and how do we manage those interactions more effectively? So a lot of our requirements that we get from our clients is we want good social media interaction. Basically, they want a smack stack. We want to be able to handle social, mobile media. I had the analytics around it, because the analytics are moving to the edge too. It's great you've got a billing system. We've got 5 petabytes of storage, but it's all historical data. And the problem with the way the market evolves is history is not a good, it's not really a good guide as to what's going to happen tomorrow. So predictive analytics is going to be a significant part of how customers are looking at it. We talked about cloud. We're a cloud services business. All our platforms, a lot of our platforms are cloud services. We also have an enterprise business, right? We still continue to sell products from the Intech portfolio, and we still implement them. But a lot of our platforms, and I'll talk a few of them, are cloud platforms. And as I said before, the value from clients' perspective is they need to leverage multiple cloud platforms, because there's no one platform. And that's why I talk about it in CSG. We talk about the innovation framework. We talk about how we glue these different platforms. Often, a lot of those are open source platforms together, and how you manage them. the scale and type of bus you need just to be able to move that information around between those platforms in a coherent way, how you secure them, is a big system integration challenge, right? No one platform is ever going to serve all your needs. You're going to have to be able to integrate lots of different systems. And that's a challenge that you have in your enterprise business, but it's also the service challenge we see in the platform business. And the big thing is really going to be about how you create innovation. So our belief is that looking at that market in that way and having a strategy around how you build your platforms provides a framework for innovation. That's what allows our customers to go and do what they need to do, because innovation is coming outside in, okay? Having a bunch of guys in any business sitting inside and thinking great thoughts isn't really going to drive innovation. BlackBerry tried it, Nokia tried it, and I think the telco operators are going to see the same thing. Innovation is going to be about, can you be a good partner to people who will build application services to you? And I think everybody says Steve Jobs, the heritage he left us was about iPhones and iPads, and that's great, but I think the heritage that he left, which has a really long-term business transformational effect, is App Store. Okay, and if you look at the Android platform, the Apple stack, the level of innovation, the creativity of those people who are building apps is unbelievable. You cannot replicate that in any department, in any marketing organization, product, R&D, whatever you call it. Not the Ericssons, not us, nobody. And our focus is we aren't going to try to be, we're not going to here to kind of create products for you, right? What we're going to do is we're going to give you the framework that you can work with whoever you want to work with and build innovation platforms, right? And we see our customers increasingly embracing WhatsApp and integrating into their service offering. You see the cable guys in the US now integrating Netflix. It's rather that you work with these guys than just be sitting while they take your business away. So that's how we see the world. Okay? And it may not be how other people see the world, but that's our focus. Our focus is about the CSG innovation framework. That's how we drive our development strategies. Okay. So this is what we really heard today about the evolution of managed services, right? And excuse my kind of thing about last week, yesterday, and today, but it does feel like that sometimes, right? We saw in the research customers are less focused on just driving costs because more or less everybody's got to a cost point. And the interesting observation I make, I don't know if there are some the SIs, the big SIs who have big offshore operations, their focus is they have so many people. They employ hundreds of thousands of people. The problem for them going forward, in my perspective on the business, is if your business is about people and selling people, then there's only one thing you can do to change your cost base: hire cheaper people, and that's what they're doing. Okay, train them less, right? Go lower down in the market. Don't buy the guys who are, got the best degrees. Buy the guys who barely pass their degrees, right? Buy people who don't really have an IT degree, but maybe they can learn on how to write code and do testing, whatever. If you're a people business and you're doing cost, you're really going to be in a difficult position, right? So I think the cost play, the right size it, labor arbitrage, all that stuff, your mess for less, I think that's history. That's history today, right? I think innovation has to drive cost transformation. Platforms, we believe, platforms are really good at driving long-term cost efficiency without sacrificing quality. Because there you're driving value through technology. There you're driving optimization to the fact that computers run faster and faster every year. So they're going to be able to do more, right? I also think big transformations are going to start to slow up. So we heard this thing that everyone wants to do business transformation. The problem with large-scale business transformation is the company starts to become almost paralyzed. Navel-gazing, it's a big thing to attempt, especially if you're a major global operator. And I have to say today, there are very few examples of global transformations which are successful. The world is moving too fast. if I'm talking about hyper innovation, I'm talking about competition that moves real fast, then big scale transformation, I don't believe, is going to be the route for tomorrow. I think where you drive transformation is, again, through innovation. You look to see where you need to be innovating. You need to see which areas of business you need to be transforming, and not necessarily the whole beast. So for me, I look at it from, let's look at how we can work with clients around business models. Because OTT is changing the business model. Okay? It's about delayering complexity. Right? It's not about big transformation. There are certain things, if you want to get service up and running quickly, you may look at a different strategy. And cloud platforms often allow you to do that more quickly than having to build a whole stack. And I think, we'll talk about outcome-based partnerships, And I'm not being glib, but outcome is a real tough thing to nail down, right? A business outcome. Most businesses are very challenged in terms of understanding their own internal cost structures. And I apply that to my business as I apply to anybody else's, right? Having been around for a long time, business outcomes have to be very well defined so that we all understand what it is that we think we're trying to achieve. But if you do smaller projects and you're more focused in what you're trying to do, I think they're more easy to see. And I think because innovation is going to be about partnering and building ecosystems, I think in the next decade, then I think they're much more easily realizable. Okay. So from our perspective, in terms of where do we set the conversation, what kind of conversations are we having with our clients? The top of the list is revenue. As I said at the start, the whole industry is hitting a brick wall in terms of revenue growth. The overriding conversation, every meeting I've ever been to, I've just come off a plane, in the last, this morning, and every one of my conversations about what is it you can help us with in terms of growing revenues? How do we grow revenues? Where will new revenues come from? And, one of the things is, if you're doing LTE, if you're going from 3G to LTE, then you have to be in the OTT business because people aren't making phone calls. Well, not as many, right? They're not even buying subscription panels from TV cable companies. They're consuming content on the fly. Oh, there's a movie I want to watch. I'll pay that. It's going to become event-driven. You will pay for things you want when you want. If you want to insure your car, I'm a classic example, right? I probably spent less than 100 days in the UK in the last 12 months, which isn't a great thing. I wouldn't recommend it, but that's kind of where I've been in the last 12 months. But I paid for my car insurance 365 days to insure my car. And I'd only been in the country 100 days, and I think even if I was here day and night, I'm never going to get value. I'd be great. I'd be a great customer pay as I go, right? Okay, and I think we'll see that market. And one of our customers, Aviva, that's what they're doing. They're using our platform. They're going to do pay as you go. Now, the issue is they're a little bit ahead of the curve because unlike General Motors, they can't tie a specific car that they've just sold where they have the information, right? So that's an insurance, knowing what's going to happen. And the other thing we're talking about is enabling multiple sales channels, right? And this is not in your CRM system. This is around the edge, okay? Is your social media channels are your CRM of today and tomorrow, okay? So if we think we're going to drive customer experience management from some stuff we do from probes in the network to some stuff we may do with our CRM system, and we call it customer experience management, I think we're missing a trick. Really, customer experience management is on the edge. And a lot of my conversation is really about is how open is my platform? How can I make the APIs and the SDKs around our platforms so that they can build stuff around it themselves, okay? So they don't have to call me, say, we need to have a meeting because we need a change request because we're going to do this. Our platforms allow you to go, you go and do that, right? Because we just need to make sure we run the platform and it's flexible enough to do it. So we have a lot of conversation about, I'm not getting locked in, you're going to give me the tools for me to innovate, right? And of course, I skipped to the last, cost is base, right? It's base. You have to have it, right? It's not. They're not going to buy it from me if I'm more expensive than anybody else, just because I can do the other stuff. The answer is we have to innovate. We have to have new technologies. We have to embrace open source. Okay? The days of product companies stiffing it to you with annual increases in your support contract, and by the way, if you're now out of support on this contract, I'm upping your rate, right? And we all know who does that very well, right? The days for product companies to see those as a gravy train is over. I mean, we're a product company. We know it. We know ourselves that we are going to do ourselves out of our product support long-term business because customers are not willing to engage in that way, right? So, in summary, what am I talking about? We look at our positioning as best of platform. Software as a service platform, that's how we see ourselves. We think if you talk about best of suite or you talk best of breed, basically the integration cost and the risk sits with you as a customer. Okay? Nobody else. We leverage our business is investing in our platforms. We amortize that investment as a long-term annuity business. Right? We're not asking our customers to pay to build it. Right? And we're not asking them to pay to buy the licenses, and we're not asking them to pay us for a maintenance support contract. We are a platform business, and we think we will be successful as we speak more and more to those operators who have those challenges. We're going to enable their business to be able to provide services globally. We're going to give them platforms that allows easy integration and support for the apps world. That's going to be the dominant thing. People ain't going to be ringing call centers. I've never rung BA. I don't even go to the BA website. I go on my app and I check in and I buy my next flight, right, on the fly, because that's how I'm going to do it. And it's no different for telcos. It's no different for telcos. You will configure your services, whether it's Virgin Media and you changing your plan that you want to watch, or whether it's British Telecom's system. I'm hoping somebody from British Telecom here will tell us how their platform will do that, because if you're selling sports rights, right? I want to be able to pick which game I want to watch, right? I might pay more. So, so it's good to say these things. So let me just spend a little bit of time and actually give you a little bit of detail about some of those platforms we're talking about and who are these guys that we work for and do. So we talked a little bit about our BSS platform. Right? It does everything that any telco is going to do, because they're not just cable businesses. But the interesting challenge is if your heritage is from content, and content is going to be king, then it's a good point to come from, because you actually understand how to move that kind of stuff around and how to enable that stuff. So that's a big platform that has a lot of big customers on it. It's very scaled and it's very large. We see customers internationally outside of the States more wanting to implement that on a private cloud infrastructure for their group of companies. And that's great for us. It doesn't really make any difference whether we sit in one data center or sit in another one. From a management point of view, it's the same. The frameworks are the same. So that's great, good for us. Content, we were one of the first ones to go as an over-the-top player. And actually our starting position wasn't with service providers. It's with all the top Hollywood studios are with us on that platform, right? In terms of digital rights management, in terms of all the innovation around how content is transmitted and how it's secured, digital lockers and everything else. Now, we don't provide all of those technologies. We provide the framework that allows all those technologies to be brought together and leveraged. And payment systems, and billing is a big part of our business, but we know customers are going to pay all different ways, right? Facebook credits, PayPal, Bitcoins, and those platforms can support that, right? Authentication is an important part of what we do, but it's a whole bunch of different standards, and we need to bring in the best of those assets. So again, we see a lot of appetite. We see our customers saying, hey, if I have content, I can go to any device across any market. So you're now seeing the likes of Dish and Comcast looking at buying global rights, because that OTT platform allows them to sell direct to whoever. They don't need to physically go and build something in India if they want to start to get into selling Bollywood movies on smartphones. The cost of entry for that client has become very low. That is the future, and they're going to have to figure out how to make money out of it. And network is just going to be another piece of what they do. Now, just on the other side, we run one of the biggest virtualized call center platforms in the world. AT&T is probably one of the biggest resellers of that platform. We have something like 90,000 CSRs running on that CRM system. Very big scale, right? And that is important if we're going to shift the market, and we're here about changing the market. We are not a Me Too player. We're not an Amdocs, and we're not an Oracle, and we're not an SAP. We're much smaller, but we believe we are the kind of companies that will be around tomorrow. Workday, Salesforce.com, we are more like those kind of businesses. And we have a wholesale business which actually virtually every carrier in the Americas runs their service on that platform. You're batch processing CDRs, and you're doing the analytics around it. You run all your business contracts across it. And the interesting thing is, the rest of the world doesn't have as much technology in terms of managing very large amounts of money that goes through the wholesale platforms, but with very thin margins. So if you're in the wholesale business, your margins are like 1-2%. You really want to be smart about, that you're routing it in the right way, and you're able to do dispute management with AT&T in a reasonable way, right? Because they're the big beast who do that. So, from a managed service point of view, we do what everybody else does. Okay, in a general sense, we have multi-vendor environments. We get involved with clients in terms of transformation. We manage legacy. It's everything we do. But our target end architecture and our end position is different. A lot of the other things that we came across from Chris, your presentation early on was you need to be able to help do the rationalization. So if you wind up doing any kind of change, portfolio rationalization is a big piece. So we have tool sets, we have methodologies around how to do that. Business process rationalization. If all you wind up doing is recreating history in your new system stack, I don't think you're going to get a better result out of it. And change management and success management is an important part of how we work with clients to make sure that what we're doing, we collectively understand how it's going to be successful. So we don't get into, hopefully, the kind of conversations that we've had Vodafone players back, because that just shows you there was a disconnect. Nobody understood on either side what was success. So just on summary, I think if you're going to partner for success, then there's a couple of pointers I would say are important. You have to work with people who do this for a living. This is what they do. Right? This is their core business. And have demonstrable history with clients over 10, 15 years that they're able to move with the change with those clients. And then it's not just a transactional relationship. Right? There's too much managed service contracts with transactional. They keep moving between vendors. That is not a success. I think having a set of complementary technology assets helps. It definitely helps. The problem with systems integrators who come into the market and are taking on other people's technology but haven't really got the depth of knowledge is going to give you a problem. And focus on creating value. So with that, I'll call it an end. Thank you.